In my current research, I was given reason to go look at the story of Jonah and the whale. And Jonah is a very short story. I read that, it's been a long time, and I've learned a lot since I've read it before. So right away as I'm reading it, I start recognizing patterns that I've since learned, and I go, oh, I see something here. So I read it, it's very short, and suddenly it just jarringly stops. It's very bizarre. I don't see any other mythological stories like this one, and that's how I'm treating it, everybody that's listening here. If you know my work, you know that I'm finding a way to interact with this material. I believe there's something inside here on a template that is a human life template that is meant for us to find a way to the God within, upstairs, an inner connection with God as opposed to a physical waiting, looking outward. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. When I get finished here, there's going to be nothing supernatural. So if you need the story to be true that Jonah lived in a whale's belly for 3 days, this is not going to be your video. You might as well just go ahead and go. That did not happen as far as I'm concerned, but there's a reason for this story to be there. It's holding something that is important. Treat it like an Aesop's fable. It didn't really happen, but there's something important in there. Okay. Let's go ahead and start. What I'm going to do is just bring it up very quickly, and I'm going to read it. Okay, I've got Jonah from the NRSV Updated Edition. It's short enough that I'm just going to read it all the way through. Then we'll come through and spend a little time analyzing it. There's some pattern things that are going on here, and I'm going to make some references, cross-references to other material from Moses and from Jesus both. I'm going to make some cross-references from things in here to things that we see elsewhere. Okay, here we go. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid his fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea. Such a mighty storm came upon the sea that the ship threatened to break up. Then the sailors were afraid, and each cried to his God. They threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the ship, and had lain down there and was fast asleep. The captain came down and said to him, What are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps the God should spare us, so that we do not perish. The sailors said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, so that we may know on whose account this calamity has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us why this calamity has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you? I am a Hebrew, he replied. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were even more afraid and said to him, What is this you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them so. Then they said to him, What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us? For the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. And he said to them, Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you, for I know it is because of me that this great storm has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring the ship back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more stormy against them. Then they cried out to the Lord, Please, O Lord, we pray, do not let us perish on account of this man's life. Do not make us guilty of innocent blood for you. O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So they picked Jonah up and threw him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord even more, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. But the Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Chapter 2. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you hear my voice. You cast me into the deep, into the hearts of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit. O Lord my God, as my life was ebbing away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake their true loyalty, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out onto the dry land. Chapter 3. Conversion of Nineveh. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you. So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, a 3 days' walk across. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's walk, and he cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone great and small put on sackcloth. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, removed his robe, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat in ashes. Then he had a proclamation made in Nineveh. By the decree of the king and his nobles, no human or animal, no herd or flock shall taste anything. They shall not feed, nor shall they drink water. Humans and animals shall be covered with sackcloth, and they shall cry mightily to God. All shall turn away from their evil ways and from the violence that is in their hands. Who knows? God may relent and change his mind. He may turn from his fierce anger so that we do not perish. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. Chapter 4, this is the end of it, very short, Jonah's anger. But this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, isn't this what I said while I was still in my own country? This is why I fled to Tarshish at the beginning, for I knew that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from punishment. And now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. And the Lord said, Is it right for you to be angry? Then Jonah went out of the city and sat down east of the city, and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade, waiting to see what would become of the city. The Lord God appointed a bush, and made it to come up over Jonah, to give him shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was very happy about the bush. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the bush, so that it withered. When the sun rose, God prepared a sultry east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah, so that he was faint and asked that he might die. He said, It is better for me to die than to live. But God said to Jonah, Is it right for you to be angry about the bush? And he said, Yes, angry enough to die. Then the Lord said, You are concerned about the bush, for which you did not labor and which you did not grow. It came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also many animals? And then it just ends, just like that. That's so bizarre. Okay, let's talk about some things that are in there. There's going to be some common elements that we see in there. First of all, I'll tell you it is a monomyth. and we're going to look at a few things. But before we do, let's talk about how we're going to use these elements. In order for this monomyth to be understood, it has to be something that is played out in the psyche. Okay, when you read a monomyth, you hook into these. They play out in the psyche. That means Jonah is you. Jonah is me. Who's going on this adventure? Who's going on the inward path for healing? This story is about Jonah, the person who is going on inward healing. If you're going on inward healing, you're going to follow the pathway of Jonah. Jonah is you. But what is Jonah? Not just you completely, because there's a lot of other stuff here. We got Lord, we got sailors, we got all kinds of things in here. We got a ship, we got a city, Nineveh, we got someplace we escaped to, all of them that belong up here someplace in the imagination. How do they fit? How do we play that out? Okay, so let's get that established. First of all, Nineveh. Nineveh needs to be rectified. What is Nineveh? All of the stories are going to contain an element that somehow represents our early self. A city that needs to be destroyed is something like that. Let's stop and just talk about life for a minute. Let's not try to figure out how the city becomes us. Let's just look at our own life. When we're born, look at your own life. Look at we're unaware. We're just kids. We're growing up in our homes. We don't know this stuff. We're not on any inward path. We're unaware, living life. We're actually happy and we're living through that higher awareness that is there. We're disconnected from everything that is in life. We have not judged life yet and begin giving it emotional experiences. However, as we age, that's what happens. We start to become products of the experiences that we have. And many times for many people, it's not so good. It's a hurtful thing. It's very bad. We are hurt. We lash out. We have anger. We have conflict in our mind. We have turmoil. There's all kinds of reasons that we don't succeed in life and feel good. Feelings of a lack of self-worth and so many different things like that. That this becomes something that it's your bundle of memories, but in the stories, they're going to call it something. That bundle of memories is going to be the bad city that needs to be corrected, Nineveh. It's going to be the field that you need to get back. It's going to be the world that needs to be destroyed. All of those are analogous terms that represent your inner self and what you were in the beginning without knowing about it. And now that we're aware of it, what we want to do is go back and heal ourselves. So Nineveh is that. Jonah is who and what our conscious experience is. The Lord is the higher awareness. That's what happens here. Let's go look at it again. Let's see what happens here. Let me talk about it first. The higher awareness. Let me identify that for people that are just watching this for the first time. The easiest way to spot this, everybody does this. You wake up at 3, 4 in the morning, frazzled, that you've got this mental conflict you can't resolve in your mind. I don't know why that works, but it's there. It's even in the material in some places, that we've got this evening sort of thing going on that we can't sleep. And there's a mental conflict going on, but if we look, we'll see that this mental conflict, what we have going on is that our conscious is experiencing the memories or the concerns, the upcoming things, the stuff that are not here yet, but we're going to face tomorrow or the next day or the next day. All of those things are part of our inner being, and they're in turmoil, and we're experiencing those in our mind. That's why we feel that way. We're wrestling with it. We're fighting with each of those memories and talking it through and having conversations with people. Okay, so one of the things they use in the spiritual world here for covering oneself up is various types of clothing, nakedness, or being covered with satin or sackcloth or something like that. Somehow, linen, pure white. There's ways of covering that when you interpret them, they're ways of saying, I have covered something in me. I've got shame, I've got pain, I've got anger. There's something that you don't know about me. Why? Because I've got it covered with something. And the covering can be good or it can be bad, depending on whether it's pure or whether it's bad or something like that. So that's what we're doing right here. When we're talking about thinking about things, we're talking about covering up. And what does Jesus say? I've got a paraphrase here, but it's something like, at the moment, don't think about what you're going to wear tomorrow, for sufficient is what you've got going on today. This is covering up. What do you got going on? We're frazzled. We're worried. We're sitting there doing that. We need to do something different. There is a way to do something different that's in the material. Every once in a while, you'll notice a small voice coming in going, hey, you gotta sleep. There's nothing you can do tonight. Just try to let it go. Boom. We slip right back into the memories, though, when the conflict comes. That's the higher awareness right there. Do you notice when it's there, it's devoid of the emotions? It's you, it's in your mind, but it doesn't feel the emotions. That's the very part when Eckhart Tolle talks about the night that he finally got it, this point where it was like, I decided I couldn't live with myself anymore. And then he started thinking, who is it that I can't live with myself? Are there two people in here? What's going on? And he realizes, yeah, the higher awareness is there, but we're living through our memories. And as long as we're living through our memories, that's what's hurting right there. The higher awareness, that's the Lord. That's the God. That's what we want to get back to. We want to get back to the free feeling. We want our city of Nineveh destroyed and purified. We want our early life rectified. Okay. Let me just go ahead and bring this up right here and let's get started on it. What I've done is I've modified, highly modified version. It's going to be. I just put that up there for my own notes. So as I'm going through my stuff later, I know that this is something that I've chopped up, not to use this for anything official. I'm just using this for interpretation. Jonah, yep. So what I did is I took a copy of Jonah, put it in a separate file here, and renamed it into interpreted version. And I split out each and every verse. I took out all of the additional notes. And you'll see that I've got numbers added in here. I'm going to talk about those a little bit, but let's start right at the beginning. I'm going to get into a little bit of high-level detail here, throwing stuff at you kind of quickly, but then I'm going to drop right back into just sticking with the document. I'll go over and let's take a look at what is going on in the Jonah in the 4 chapters. First is kind of a big overview. Then we'll come down and look at it a lot closer at the level of verse. Okay, so it starts off right here. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying. Now what you're going to do in Abrahamic material is see this at the beginning of every chapter, something like this. Remember, these are coming around word of mouth. If somebody starts talking to you, you want to know what you're hearing. Where's that coming from? Who says this? Whose story is it? So this is kind of like the title. If you had a book that there was a title cover, a cover on it, that's what this is in the verbal sense. It's the cover. However, now something is happening that is in that numbering sequence that people don't know about. This is where there's the evidence of a lot of analysis that I've done. Just take a look at these numbers right here. Well, let me read this first. This is the title. In Abrahamic material, it will start like this with an encoded numbering sequence, which is found in counting the amount of times the word was used in any given book of the Bible. Each Abrahamic book contains this feature. Every book of the Bible does this exact numbering right here. It is developed in Genesis in a bizarre-sounding numbering sequences in 2 lineages, the Adam and the Terah, as well as a Sodom, which is not a lineage, but a different. I won't destroy it for this many righteous, very strange numbering sequence. Those numbers we gather up and they fit a certain something, and here's what they are. Here's what they, as we gather them up, here is exactly what they are. What you can see, honestly, it's a 3-7 grid is what I call it, that the 3-7 is a space on a human life template. The 3-7 is developed where Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed in the Garden of Eden before first sin. That represents the part in a human life cycle where we are old enough to be self-aware, happy, and we know things. We know how to live life, happily play in the sandbox or with our dolls or whatever it is that we, just as kids, before we start having life experiences that make us lose our happiness. When we're young, this is that point that's very crucial right here. We're living through that higher awareness. That 3-7 Garden of Eden right there, that's the point we want to get back to. That it starts a grid. Those numbers are going to be too repetitive. We see the 3-7s all over, don't we? Job even starts with 7 sons and 3 daughters. I'm going to use Job here in an example. So, okay, and this probably sounds foreign. This is going to take a whole different series of videos on getting to this part right here. It's a big, big thing that we don't see it because it's just too nested deep. I'm using the computer or I couldn't get here. I couldn't figure this out. You know what, though? This is important to state because people today are very arrogant and they think they know this stuff so good they just, they're proud of themselves. 3,000 years ago, somebody would have had this memorized. Not only would they have it memorized completely, they would know how many times names have been repeated in there if they're doing this. If you think about it, we do not know it like they did. You see the repeating numbers in here. Do you know that? I mean, how many times was 800 said? That's weird. 7 times. 900, 7 times. Yeah, there's patterns in here. If you start analyzing it, something begins to emerge. But it's in repeating numbering sequences that we would only have if we had this story memorized. We don't have access to it. That's why I'm making these cumbersome videos showing you what's there. If we had it memorized at a deeper level, we wouldn't have to do this. We could talk about it. I could ask you, how many times was Noah's name said in Genesis? And you could go, 41. What about Sarai's? 17. We'd be able to do that. We can't. All right, so this is the series of numbers as 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. There's a 800 and a 900. Remember in the analog farm, people lived 800 and so years, or 900 and so years. 800 is said exactly 7 times. 900 is said exactly 7 times. They're being used to go out and grab other numbers. So the numbers that appear with the 800s and the 900s belong in this pool up here. And then we also see, though, that after day 7 is what? Day 8. Day 8 is first sin. There's some unknowns. You'll see a 9 up there. I think I've got 2 dialed in. 9, I'm not certain. 8, 11. Look at the 13 right there. And the 16. The 18. 21. These are important because look at my numbers here. We've got Jonah 18 times. That sounds bad. Word of the Lord, that's good. Came to Jonah, which is bad. Son of Amittai, that's just something up there. Okay, now let's take a look. What I'm going to do is just show real quickly examples of how that works from a couple of other books, and then I'm going to leave that. This is just to continue to show cross-referencing so that people know that this is indeed very much a part of Abrahamic material at a very deep level. Okay, this comes from the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. That's how that Solomon starts. Song of Songs 2 times, which is Solomon's, 7. Take a look at our numbers here. We've got our 2 and our 7 from the green zone. Okay, let's go take a look at another one. We've got, okay, and this one is from the book of Job. Let me just take this out right now. I don't need that to stay in there. These are just examples. There once was a man in the land of Uz. There's our 1 time that's said, whose name was Job. 63. We've got a 60 and a 3. The man was blameless. 10. It's said 10 times in the document. If you have any questions about whether it's good or bad, count how many times it is. Blameless, it's green, that's a pure place. And upright. 10. Pure place. Who feared God and turned away from evil. Evil, 16 times. Look at where it is on the list. You see what's happening here? They're going to repeat things in here that's going to help me do the interpretation to know whether or not something is good or bad. Down here, go at once and go to Nineveh. 9. Okay, that's not on our good thing. That's one of the unknowns. That's one that I think means get ready for transition, I think. Anyway, so that helps me see what's going on. And what happens right there, that is actually the calling. We become aware. We must face our wrong, shameful, hateful beliefs. Our inner hurt has awakened a higher awareness among the called ones. Okay, go at once to Nineveh, that great city. What is happening here? The word of the Lord came to Jonah, saying, Go at once to Nineveh, a great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. This is a time in our life where we've decided, I've had it. I'm going to turn inward. The word of the Lord to Jonah, understanding what to do, understanding this material, comes to the seeker. Job is who you're going to be, 63. You have to be blameless and upright. Fear God and turned away from evil. These are analogous. If you read them, if you don't interpret them, they mean one thing. If you interpret them, they mean something different. Fearing God does not mean being afraid of God. What that means is understanding, comprehending the higher awareness, who is blameless and feared and turned away from evil. So this is a pure person. Actually, that's a poor term. No, it's not a pure person. What we're turning away from evil. What is evil in this case really is, we need to define it. Evil has a very specific definition. Evil means living life judging unaware. So if I'm living in evil, that means I'm living not through my higher awareness, but through my memories. That doesn't mean that I'm evil or that I'm being evil. If you want to understand the material, what you have to understand is turning away from evil means just that. Turning away from the negative, turning away from those memories, turning away from the hurt. The stuff that we sit and wallow in, we have to stop wallowing in that and understand to bring the higher awareness into our conscious space and not the other. So that's what that really means. Turning away from evil, sin, all of that stuff really is when we're young, we're living through that higher awareness, completely unaware of it. We don't have the mental cognition. What do? We develop our brains. We develop cognition by experiencing life. And whatever that is whatever we become. At some point in time, the called person is going to say, oh, I see what's happening. I'm having a physical experience that I've learned. Now I can extract myself from that and live from my source again. That's what this is. You're turning away from that physical life experience you've judged and living from the higher self. That's what really turning away from evil is. Turning away from the hurt life. That's a Noah thing there, isn't it? He was blameless and upright, and yeah. Go at once to Nineveh, that great city. Nineveh 9 times, a place that needs changing. Go turn inward to yourself, and it's time to face yourself. For the wickedness, the issues that you have unresolved from you has come up before the higher awareness. So this is really us looking at ourselves and saying, that's it. I'm done. A calling is a personal thing. But what happens here? But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So this represents us being bad and leaving the higher awareness. It's like, nope, I'm not going to hang with the higher awareness and stay detached. I don't want to go deal with my issues. I'm going to leave them. Okay, this is fun stuff. It just came to me as I'm making the video. I just found an opposite version in Genesis, the Sodom story. What we have here is Abraham is the called person instead of Jonah. Jonah fled when it was time to go destroy the city. What happens when it's time to destroy Sodom? And the men turned their faces from and went towards Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? And it goes through that numbering sequence. But right here, instead of him saying, nope, I'm not going to, Abraham stood before the Lord as they're getting ready to go destroy Sodom, where in our Jonah story, he flees when it's time to go correct Nineveh. Yeah. See that? He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. And so he paid the fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish. See how it says Tarshish and Tarshish twice? These are the things that are getting your attention. Tarshish, Tarshish, Tarshish. It would be like this if I was trying to perhaps get your attention by repeating something, then I might do something like perhaps get your attention by repeating something, or I might do it by perhaps getting your attention by repeating something. Read it and you'll go like, why are they doing that? Those are the clues. Count them. They're purposeful. Okay, I don't know if the way I'm doing things makes it better or worse. It's the way I find it, so it's the only way I can do it. I'm going to go ahead and delete those out of there. They were just examples from other places. You go anywhere in the Bible and find it's going to start out like this. It's come from some place that is good, and it's going to name off some things that are going to fit this numbering sequence right here. And then as you go through it, it's going to continue to maintain that numbering sequence. Okay, so he's been told to go, but Jonah set out to flee. He fled, but the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and such a mighty storm came upon the sea, the ship threatened to break up, and the sailors were afraid, and each cried to his God. They threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the ship, and lay down and was fast asleep. The shipmaster came to him and said, Why, what are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps the God will spare us a thought, so that you do not perish. I don't know why that's red. That's not right. Okay, let's just stop and talk about what's going on here for a little bit before going on, because it sounds deeper than what it really is. We're Jonah. God is the higher awareness. It's time to go back and resolve issues, but we don't want to. Why? Why don't we want to resolve issues? What are the issues? This is your story. This is your path. Habits, drugs, alcohol, addictions, stuck places, abuse. What is it? Those are the issues that we have. That's our city of Nineveh. Do you want to go do that? Do you want to go face it? Sometimes you have to go do it, and a called person will do it. And sometimes a called person is going to say no, because it's a struggle. You have to forgive the person who molested you, who raped you, who beat you, who stole from you. You have to forgive yourself for doing those same things to other people. If you're looking for inner peace, and we're living through these things, they're going to continue to hurt us, and we're going to continue to live through them. So what's happening right here is that we're being told to go repair this. We know we're supposed to, but we don't want to. Instead, what do? We flee. And we go to some place where we're down, we're not even paying attention. There's a storm all around us. Life is tumultuous. This represents our life right here, this storm in the sea. But where is the part of us that needs to do this? We're not even paying attention. We're down below decks. So finally what happens then is that we have to, the story goes in such a way that it's meant to show the idea that we got to wake you up. Okay, you need to go do this. Everything is bad here, and you need to be somehow rectified. You yourself need to find a purity. So what happens? Let's continue to read and see what goes on next. The sailors said one to another, "Come, let us cast lots, so that we may know on whose account this calamity has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. 18. Lots are good things. What is it? We're looking for the purity. Casting lots is looking for the purity, and it's on Jonah. We know internally, buddy, it's the consciousness right there. It's you. You're the one in charge. Hello, Jonah, or McFly. Then they said to him, "Tell us why this calamity has come upon us. What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?" "I am a Hebrew," he replied. "I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were even more afraid of him. "What is this you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he told them so. All right, these men, all of these are our inner qualities, their inner characteristics. It is our turmoil. We are going, what the hell do I do with my life? It's calamitous. Where do you come from? And we find out, oh, you're fleeing from the presence of the Lord. You've left your higher awareness. You turn to the Lord. How does that make you feel? How's that rape? How's that molestation? How's all that other stuff? How's that abuse? How's that time you sit and just say, what a worthless piece of crap I am because I believed it, because I was told that so many times? That's a tumultuous sea we're living in. What happens? It moves on. They want to get rid of whoever this is, that it may quiet down for us. For the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. So this represents, if we were to make comparisons with the same template in Genesis, this would be representative of the time where life is beginning to go bad before the flood. In chapter 6, I believe it is. They said to him, when the sea quiet down, for the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. It's getting so raucous, we got to do something here. He said to them, "Pick me up and throw me in the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great storm has come upon you." But they didn't. They tried to get it. They didn't. They tried to row back to land, but could not, for the sea grew more and more stormy against them. We're still struggling. This is that you got to move on. How easy is it? What if this abusive place you leave from is where you get your food? And if you leave, you don't have any. What the hell? This is a hard place to leave. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring the ship back to land. I try to make it work anyway. But they cannot, for the sea grew more and more stormy against them. Life gets worse. So what did they do? They pick him up and threw him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord even more, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. But the Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, first thing I want to do right here is make a comparison. We're going to make a comparison. Do you see how the story went, though? You're Jonah. You're traveling through life, ignoring the higher awareness. Things get bad. No matter what, it keeps getting worse. It's hard to move on. But now what happens here is there's a strange element that comes in. This is where the mythology comes in. Verse 17, actually, even, which is one of our good numbers. What happens? Jonah just crossed a threshold. He went into the water and went into a second threshold, the fish's mouth, and went into the belly, into a cavity for 3 days, 3 nights. 3 is said 3 times in here as well. The cross-referencing continues. Nights is said 3 times. So if I were to look at that and interpret that, I'm going to say 17, it's a good number. It's right here locked into a verse, which is interesting. That's another big story. The Lord provided a large fish to swallow up Jonah, which is not a good... Jonah needs some purity there. Jonah's got some changes to make. Was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Which is what? 3 mean what? The pure state. So what this is really saying is you need to find... Okay, so the Lord provides a large fish. That's the higher awareness, providing a space for us till purity. Yeah, that's what that means right there. We have to do that internally. This is a process. And you know what? If you were ever to look at the Joseph Campbell monomyth, and I'm not a fan of it, but this is the one place where belly of the fish comes into play. What's happening in belly of the fish on the template? This is where you are in your mind. This is where your inner memories reside. This is where you need to heal. Okay, so what happens then? Jonah prayed while you're in there. This is us. We're praying to the Lord our God from the belly of the fish. We're in distress. Out of the belly of Sheol, hell. Hell is not a... We have to be careful with this term. It has been morphed into some sort of an eternal place of damnation forever. What this meant and what it means on the template is a low place for you. You have the kingdom of heaven within, and you've got the kingdom of hell within. The belly of Sheol is a place where you live that is living in a funk. How bad do I even care to even be alive? There you are. You're in the belly of Sheol right there. You're not in the kingdom of heaven within. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the sea, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. I'm being washed over. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? This is, I don't know how to find you. I don't know how to see you. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? Holy temple is a mental place where you know what, when you wake up at night, and if you can engage with that part of you and keep that part there that says, hey, you've got to let it go, and you feel disconnected right there, you're in the holy temple right there. We're going to find that in other material. You know what? Let me just show. I've got a very small collection right here, but this is just, again, to illustrate how common the material is, but it sounds differently. The analogs are different. In the Babylonian Enuma Elish, there's a place called Andaruna. That's the dwelling place of the bad gods. That's where everything is that goes bad. Then there's a Ubshu Ukanaku, also from the Enuma Elish, the Hall of the Divine Congress. But these are mental places where you go reside within your state of being, within your state of mind, within your imagination. Leviticus, Jewish, Tabernacle of the Congregation. And then we've got Holy Temple right here in the Jonah material. All of those are going to be the kind of things you're looking for in material that kind of sound, if you look at them, you know what? Don't look at what is different about them. Look at what is the same about them and put them in the psyche. Yeah, you'll find it that way. Look for what's the same. The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. At the roots of the mountains, I went down to the land whose bars closed around me forever. Yet you brought me up. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God. So, how are you being raised above from it's the higher awareness engaging with the consciousness. That is how it happens. You will actually feel that sensation. As my life was ebbing away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake their royalty. There's that holy temple again, said twice. We're going to find that as again, I'll cover it later. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. Voice of thanksgiving will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. What I have vowed I will pay is what? Those are the decisions I've made. But with a voice of thanksgiving, with a rejoicing, I will give up the decisions I have made, the names I have claimed, the things that I have judged. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. The Lord is where we don't care about those things. That's the part where we are disconnected from them. What we're connected to, what we have vowed we will pay, are emotional nightmares. They're hurt. We have to give them up. We're all ready to go. Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out into the dry land. There we go. Okay. So here we are. We've gone through a purification process, and now the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, here you go. You got another chance. Go, get up to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you. So now we've gotten through something there. I want to stop, though. I kind of bounced off of something, didn't I, here? What is the Jesus story? It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Should I grab one up or just talk about it? Where he goes into the boat and he's asleep. There's one where he's below decks and the storm is raging and they have to go wake him up to come up and calm the sea. Of course, the issue isn't him. They don't throw him into the water. Something different happens. But you see that same element. We're on the boat in the sea with the sailors, with the disciples. I am unconcerned, yet somehow around me this tumultuous thing is happening, and it's up to me to come up and calm it. Jesus was already prepared to do it. Jonah had to get prepared first. So there's a sequential thing going on there. They're both going to accomplish it, but Jesus was ready right off the bat. It goes differently from there, though. We're going to be paying attention to this and linking it back up later, where Jonah is going to have to go and do some work in Nineveh. Jesus is going to go to the Gadarenes and deal with the man of the tombs. So there's a difference there, but we'll talk about those. Okay, let's get back to where we left off. Let's see here. Chapter 3. Yeah, there we go. Jonah just got vomited back up onto the land, onto dry land. He's back out into regular life now after going through, honestly, what would be, you'd have to look at that and say he's gone through a purification process. He is now healed and he's ready to go. But he's got to go address Nineveh. He is now educated and knows what to do, but he's got to go deal with the inner self. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you. So it's time for the conscious, which is really in charge, to do all of the work. The conscious is the one that makes all of the decisions about how we feel about things and how we judge those things, how we hold them emotionally. And then the consciousness continues to live through those based on that, not knowing that. The higher awareness is there. If we learn that helps us engage with the memories and heal them and not live through them. So that's basically what we're kind of looking at happening right here. We're going to Nineveh with the word of the Lord, with the purity to go to our memories. We have to take and go heal ourselves. So we began to go into the city, going a day's walk, and he cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So there was a 3 days walk across the city, and 40 days more, Nineveh shall be overthrown. What I'm going to link that to mentally is in 7 days I will send rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and in 7 days I did send rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And then what happens? The world was drowned out. Nineveh was overthrown. The 3-7 grid is there in the background, kind of supporting something that might look a little chunky. But if you look at it and smooth it out a little bit in the mind, the earth is your experience. Nineveh is your experience, the old experience. We're looking to purify those. 3 and 40 are part of our grid. Nineveh needs to be changed. Okay, and the people of Nineveh believed in God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone great and small put on sackcloth. I say sackcloth like that. It's sackcloth. I think people listening to it on the radio might say, "What's sackcloth? What's sackcloth?" Oh, sackcloth. Okay, I get what he's saying. So, yeah, I overpronounced it there. It sounds cumbersome. That was just to help people probably hear what I'm saying if they're listening on that earbuds or something like that. And the people of Nineveh believed in God. So this is our inner selves proclaim a fast. That means we stop whatever we're doing. The fast is a spiritual fast, not a physical fast. What are you doing? Where are you? What's your life like? Quit. Turn away. Fast. And everyone great and small put on sackcloth. Sackcloth 3. 3 is a covering. Covering is used all throughout Jewish material. It starts out with Genesis. The covering is what? After the flood, you're naked. You are actually uncovered. You know what? It has its roots deeper than that. Where did it start? Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden. That's where the 3-7 grid starts. Day 8, what happens? First sin, and you cover. You put on the covering on day 8. Yeah. In the physical world, doesn't sound good. But if you realize it's spiritual, you go, okay, you want to be spiritually naked, which means I got nothing to hide. I don't care what you know about me. I got nothing to hide. That's a good place to be. If you have things to hide, it doesn't feel good. You have pain, shame, hurt. Yeah, dishonesty inside. It doesn't feel okay. It conflicts us. So let's see. Everyone great. Sackcloth. Sackcloth in this case, because it's 3. Sackcloth is being used here then to say something, put on something pure. Depending on where you read from, it might be somebody putting on white linen or something like that. They didn't maintain naked as a good thing throughout material. They began to change it as putting on other kind of garments. You don't want on dirty garments. You want on clean garments. That means whatever you're covered in is pure. They're just changing the analogous way over time. And so sackcloth here, what that means is you're taking, you're stop consuming from your life experience and you're putting on purity. You know, that's a weird thing to say. There's actually something more interactive here, and I'm not even quite getting there. I'm kind of new to this. What is purity? You're putting on purity. No, what you're doing is we're habitual. We habituate. We live through habituation. What we need to do is turn away from our habitual bad stuff and turn towards something new to habituate towards. We're putting on new garments that are clean garments and taking off the old garments, which means getting rid of the old way and moving on to a new way. We don't just turn away from the old way and do nothing. You have to do something. So put something else in place. And you know what that simply means? Replacing derogatory activity with beneficial activity. Don't just leave a void. It's too easy to backslide. Go find something fun to do that is positive and make a habit of it. Go for it. We habituate. We live that way. Just make it good ones. And the king of Nineveh is whoever's in charge of that there. Whoever the one that goes, yeah, nanny, nanny, boo-boo. Whoever your early self was. You got to rose from your throne, remove your robe. You're giving up charge. Covered yourself with sackcloth and sat in ashes. Sounds like Job, doesn't it? Sitting in ashes at the end of time. In the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, Marduk is the called hero, like Jonah would be here. And what he does during the time that he is taking over is he takes the tablet of fate from the original person. And in this case, where the king is voluntarily taking off his robes, he's the ruler, would represent the same place as the called hero removing the tablets of fate from you. You are the one in charge. You wore the robes. You are the one in charge. You carried the tablets of fate. That's how they get thick. So we're putting on purity and we're looking for some way to clarify. Then he had a proclamation made in Nineveh by the decree of the king and his nobles. No human or animal, nor herd, nor flock shall taste anything. They shall not feed, nor shall they drink water. At this stage of this purity that's going on in Nineveh, it should almost, if you're looking for what's similar and not what's different, it should sound like being in the desert for 40 years and only eating manna, only consume this, nothing else, only this amount, no matter who, don't take any more, no less. In this case, by the decree of the king and his nobles, no human or animal, nor herd or flock shall taste anything. They shall not feed, nor shall they drink water. This is, you stop living your life the way you're living it. Turn away from all the stuff that is not okay. By decree of the king and his nobles, no human or animal, nor herd nor flock, no part of you internally shall consume from life experience that causes your spiritual hurt. Humans and animals shall be covered with sackcloth, purity, and they shall cry mightily to God. You shall turn from their evil ways. That means turn away, let go of what you're doing. Turn away from all of the stuff and from the violence that is in their hands. Yeah, turn away from all of the bad stuff and just look to the good. Okay, turn away from the evil and the violence that is in their hands. The evil and the violence in their hands, you're hanging on to something that is not okay, and what happens is violence ensues as a result. We get angry. We scream, we yell, we pound holes in the wall, we do all manner of things. Not everybody gets that extreme. Some people get much worse. Some people lose it completely and give up their entire lives in a moment of just making bad choices. That's what they're talking about here. The violence that comes from the things that we're hanging on to. This is us. This is the story about me or you or whoever is on this path. Then it says, who knows? God may relent and change his mind. He may turn from his fierce anger so that we do not perish. Okay, so this really represents an internal part where we've said to ourselves, you know what, I'm going to give it all up. I'm going to stop doing all that. I'm just going to become pure and simple and live that life. And maybe God will not destroy me. Maybe God won't kill me then. Maybe God won't destroy who and what I am if I change who and what I am. And that's not me as a human. That's me as a quality. What would that be? That would be, I once loved things and now I hate things, but I promise to love things again. That's how it would be. Not me as a human, but me as a quality. I used to trust things. Now I don't trust. Now I want to trust again. We've got to get back to childhood state. Of course, we have wisdom. We're not stupid. I don't mean just, trust everything. There's things to not trust. But as far as living life connected to life or disconnected, yeah, there's a point we have to pull back. Let's see. Who knows? God may relent and change his mind. He may turn from his fierce anger so that we do not perish. That's who we are. It's all those qualities inside. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. So the story is just holding this idea of threat of destruction if you don't straighten up your ways. So I have to kill you off, and inside you're like, okay, I relent, I'm going to change. Okay, this is where it gets weird, though. This is where it gets weird. Jonah's anger. Jonah is the consciousness. But this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he became angry. So why would you be angry that your inner self is ready to face peace? I don't know, maybe because it hurts at the time you're doing it. Oh, maybe. He prayed to the Lord and said, oh, Lord, is not this what I said? I don't like wording like that. Isn't this what I said when I was still in my own country? So what happens right up at the beginning? It just said, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, go at once. But Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So his country was the presence of the Lord is where he fled from to begin with. So when he says, while I was still in my own country. So he was in the beginning very okay and connected with God. But when God wanted him to go in and clear things, that's why I fled to Tarshish at the beginning, for I knew that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and relenting from punishment. I got it. Countries, world, anything else, my city, my life. So when I'm still in my own country, that meant when he was still in his early state before first sin. Yeah, okay. You got to go through this stuff to figure it out. The analogs continue to shift when I was still in my own country, when I was young, before I had my life experiences that took me away, and I left you, and I went away from your presence. Yeah, this is life experience. It's not two callings. Boy, this is weird. It's a fun one. This is leaving the past. But I don't know about the part that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and relenting from punishment. Really, throughout Jewish material, there is this idea that I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. It doesn't quite sound like this. So I'm not quite sure exactly what this is. It might just be the higher awareness and nothing else, not the entire cosmos. So it's kind of limits that down to what it is. Slow to anger. Yep. Disconnected from your emotions, you should be slow to anger. Abounding in steadfast love. Yep. And relenting from punishment. Yep. You don't feel it there. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. And now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. That kind of makes sense if we're talking about a rebirth, except that he went through one 3 days in and out of the belly of the whale. I'm not sure. It's where it gets a little weird. Then Jonah went out of the city and sat down east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade, waiting to see what would become of the city. Okay, I don't find parallels with that anywhere. So you're going outside. Well, maybe so. Maybe the Sodom story again. Wasn't Lot going and observing the city after he left to see what would happen or to see the destruction? Yeah, I'm not sure. But what would that mean? You're looking back at your past self. You're looking to see what would become. You're looking back and wondering, am I going to make it? Is that what's happening? And Jonah went out of the city, went out of who and what you are that promised you're going to make change, and sat down east of the city, east of Eden, and made a booth for himself, some place there where you're just outside of yourself, looking at yourself. Yeah, okay. He sat under it in the shade, waiting to see what would become of the city. So that's weird. He sat under it in the shade. He made a booth for himself. The Lord God appointed a bush and made it come up over Jonah to give him shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was very happy about the bush. You see how this looks weird? In the King James Version, it says gourd there instead of bush. But verse 5, it said he sat it in the shade, waiting to see what would become of the city. So he was already in the shade. So something here sounds a little weird, because now God sends a shade to go over him. But Jonah was happy about the bush. So yeah, he was happy that the bush was there. But the next day, the bush died. It says God appointed a worm that attacked the bush so that it withered. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Huh? You got a bush? Not anymore. When the sun rose, God prepared a sultry east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah, so that he was faint and asked that he might die. He said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Now, the only thing I can think of here is that is you, your earlier self, saying, you know what, I want my earlier self to die. This person who I was is not who I am now. I have died to my earlier self. And that's really just a metaphorical, spiritual statement there, indicating that who and what I was, my belief system that I was convinced of, I have now realized, oh my God, I believed things that I just because I was told to, and now I'm not that way anymore. So that could be the death that they're talking about, that I want to die. I want my old self to die. It is better for me to die than to live. I don't know if that's the case. I can't find precedent too much. There's bits and pieces here that sound like Job, sound like Jesus, sound like Genesis. All right. We get down to the bottom, though, and then it says, But God said to Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the bush? And he said, yeah, angry enough to die. So he's so angry about it. He says, yeah, I want to die. I'm so angry about that bush. Then the Lord said, are you concerned about the bush for which you didn't even labor and which you didn't grow? It came into being in the night and perished in the night. So this is kind of right here saying, why are you concerned about something that you have no control over? It comes and it goes, and there's nothing that you had anything to do with it. Why are you concerned about it? I don't know. This is hard to unwrap. But then all of a sudden it just ends very bluntly like this. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh? And right here, you know what? I don't know if that changed. Is this the Lord talking? But God said to Jonah, is it right? And he said, yes, angry enough to die. So it sounded like there was a dialogue back and forth between God and Jonah in number 9. But then you get to 10. Then the Lord said, you are concerned about the bush for which you did not labor and which you did not grow. It came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh? That must be God right there. And should I not be concerned about Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also many animals? And the dialogue simply stops. There's like no wrapping it up. There's no resolving. Isn't that really weird? So I'm not sure how to end that. I look at that and go, okay, I see calling, I see denial, I see purity happening. I see the correcting of the city, the healing, okay, we relent, we're going to give up our ways and turn and face to the higher awareness and focus on living through there. The last part, I can't quite unwrap. It sounds so kludgy. And then it just doesn't wrap up in the end. It's like there's no what happened in the end? Whatever happened to Jonah? Did he die or not? It really left things kind of empty there, which I found to be weird. Anyway, I wanted to show you that in here. I don't have an answer for that in the end. Maybe something will come to me. It's probably purposeful, but it's just something that's foreign. It doesn't go and finish up a standard monomyth, which are very long. Go read Ezekiel. Whoa, that's big. This is very quick here. So this is doing something very short, but it starts off with the components that you see. The absence from the higher awareness, the reconnection with it, the denial, I don't want to do it, the tumultuous experience in life when you're not paying attention, the need to go through a healing and an understanding to go back and start resolving the inner issues. All of that seemed to be in place. Those are normal parts of a story. And of course, upon analysis, there's conflict in this story. When it starts right off in the beginning, we have God, the Lord, telling Jonah to go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. So already we're being told right here that you need to go take care of your past. That's what it sounds like right here. When we get down here, however, to verse, 4? Yeah, he prayed to the Lord and said, is not this what I said while I was still in my own country? This is why I fled to Tarshish at the beginning. Okay, right there, he went down to, so he left because he said in the beginning, I left my country, I left you. Yeah, it's kind of weird. This right here, if you read it, this actually is a life experience. He did come from here, but what it really represents is that you've gone off now. The wickedness wouldn't have been there, though. Why would the wickedness be there in the beginning? If you're starting out, there isn't any wickedness. But you go to Tarshish and you go down there, great wind. So apparently, there's something missing from up here. Yeah, but it's so short. And the way that it ends, yeah, I don't know. You can see parts in here, though, that make perfect sense and other parts that just don't wrap it up. And you can see parts that sound like everything from Genesis to Jesus. Absolutely. In fact, speaking of that, I wanted to wrap that up, the Jesus connection there. Okay, so as far as being in the boat, what we had is that Jonah was in the boat and there was a stormy sea, and they had to get Jonah up and get him off the boat in order to create the calmness. And then once Jonah emerged from the whale after relenting and giving up his ways and saying, I know what to do now, forgiveness, peace, all that sort of stuff. I find you and I'm going to go connect with you in your space. Okay. That what happens is that Nineveh then, as he goes through Nineveh, 3 days across, 40 days in there, all of that, waiting, going through this purging, what seems to be like this sort of a standard sequential numbering pattern in Abrahamic healing processes on the template. Okay, so as that is happening right there, you can see that then there's a healing that happens as a result. The end is kind of weird. I don't know what happens in the end, but the people of the city, they all gave up their ways, put on sackcloth, sat in the ashes. The king gave up his rule, and they told God, we'll give up our ways. And God said, all right, you're off the hook then. All right, so what do we have in the Jesus story is that he goes out, he's on the boat, is in the storm. The storm is raging. They have to wake him up and say, you got to come and save us. So he does. But from there, it changes a little bit different. And remember, Jesus is already purified. Jonah had to get purified. Jesus is already there. He's the Son of God. But what does he do is he goes to the island, the land of the Gadarenes, and where the man is that's possessed with many demons, the man of the tombs or the men of the tombs, depending on which version, there's a number there. But basically what you have then is a part of you. This is also a part of you. This is the part of you that is full of all your stuff. This is the man of the tombs. This is the king with the robe. What you must do then is what happens is the city gave up and was saved, and the man had all the demons escape from him, and he was saved. Look for what's the same in the stories, not for what's different. Okay, so I see elements in here that I look at it and go, they're repeating. How that ends, what it does there in the end, I don't know. Perhaps the story had more to it that they went, we can't let that fly. I don't know. I don't find too many things choppy like this. And I'm sure the cities lead from other places as well. These stories kind of network together. But anyway, okay, I wanted to show that in this video. It was fun. It's such a short chapter. The book with short chapters in there. Sometimes I say verse, chapter, something like that, mix up. You know what I mean? But it's very short and it's quick and easy to read. And it's pretty quick to go through. And it's pretty intuitive until that last part where I go, I don't get this. And it just ends without, it's like you didn't finish the story. What happened to the city in the end, and what happened to Jonah in the end? Yeah. So, all right. Fun stuff. I know. I need to get to Genesis. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thoughts, comments. If you got any idea what that's going on in the end, boy, I'd love to hear about it. All right. See you in the next video.